Today, we want to talk about whether or not you actually need medical school admission consulting, or is this all a scam? My name is Behrouz Moemeni. I'm joined with Meng, who is one of our senior admission experts, and we're going to talk about this. We only have 10 minutes. If you have never been to any of these videos or podcasts, I'm just setting my timer. Every week, we discuss one topic, and we only have 10 minutes to give you our best answer for this topic. So here it is. I just set my timer. If you could see it, there we go. Once the timer goes off, we're done. Now, before we start, I want to say that this is completely unscripted. We're not going to use any fancy effects, visual, audio, etc. It's all pure content, and everything we teach you, it's the same things we've learned in our private consulting with our own private students. But we have nothing to sell you. All we want to do is give you lots of free content. All right. So Meng, do students need medical school admission consulting, or is it a total scam?
Okay, well, since we only have 10 minutes, I'm going to start off by giving the straight up answer. And my answer is yes. Okay, and we can definitely talk about why in the next 9 minutes or so that we have. I think one of the reasons is because the process is complicated, and it's only getting more and more complicated as time goes on because of the number of applicants and the amount of vetting that goes on in this entire process. So from the students end, most people only do it once, hopefully, maybe twice, but with that amount of experience, it's actually a really hard process to navigate.
So I agree with that, but I'm gonna give a little bit of a different response to this. I actually think it depends. It depends. Here's what it depends on. One, do you have somebody who is intimately familiar with the admissions process that has helped others successfully in the past that can help you out? If yes, well, that's a form of medical school admission consulting from somebody you know that's not charging you. So there you go. Two, are you a mature applicant, let's say a master's, PhD, you've done this process, you feel confident, and you have the level of maturity where the application process doesn't intimidate you, and maybe you, in another context, you've even sat as an admissions committee member and know both sides of the story. So again, you may not need it. Those would be some of the scenarios where you may actually not need it. And then all of a sudden you're going to end up having too many chefs in the kitchen, which is a bad idea. If you have someone to help you, or if you know you're confident, then you don't need it, don't use it. If you don't, and you have doubts, you should definitely use it, because just like any other form of coaching, it's something of value if if it's a skill you lack and you're willing and able to take that feedback, make changes. And the admissions process is, to someone who has never done this, or someone who's not familiar, or someone who's done this and been rejected. Obviously, if you've been rejected in the past, that means whatever you did by definition probably did not work, is not going to work again. So it doesn't make sense to do the same thing again. Like they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So assuming we're not operating under that sort of mode of operation, and we're going to do something different, it makes sense to ask somebody to help you out. Now, I'm going to keep dissecting this. Now, should you pay for it, or should you ask somebody to do it for you for free? So you don't have a friend or family to help you out, but then you have the option of, again, medical school admission consulting. Just because you have the consulting in it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be paid. But then how do you find somebody to help you out and consult with you but not get paid? What are the scenarios? We have 6 minutes.
Well, first of all, I think it really depends. You have to be careful about the credibility of the information that you're getting. So whether it's paid or unpaid, you need to make sure that that person, like you had said, Behrouz, has either experience on the other side of the process, or they have a lot of experience helping successful students get into medical school. Some of the options, I mean, if you've volunteered or shadowed or worked in a clinical setting and you have a good relationship with a medical professional, for example, they are people who are more or less experienced in the process. They've gone through it themselves. They've probably seen other applicants go through it. They are a possible source of information to help you navigate the process. Other students will also go to professors who, though themselves have not gone into medical school or into the medical profession, have probably worked with students who are on that same path, written recommendation letters, hopefully been successful, seen their students be successful in that process. They could also probably provide you with some valuable information. Those are some of the things I could think of right off the bat.
I think those are valid points. Now, the question is, what are the pros and cons, paid versus unpaid medical school admission consulting? So let's run through them. Pros, well, if it's unpaid, you don't have to pay. I guess that makes sense. You save some money.
Cheaper, yeah.
Con, if they don't have the experience, you may end up having to redo the process again. Con of, paid, obviously you're going to be some amount of money out of pocket. But if you don't know how to choose the person who's going to do a paid consultation and you choose the wrong person or organization, again, you may be out of money and also end up with a rejection letter just because they didn't know what they were talking about. So of course, due diligence has to be done to figure out who's best, who's not.
I'll also just add one thing is someone who you're not paying, like a professor or maybe a physician, they're not committed to helping you through the entire process, right? So like they could say yes because they have some amount of time and, they have all the goodwill, I trust that. But, if they get busy, if something happens, they may not be able to see it through with you. Right?
Exactly. So what happens is when you have someone who is not paid and it's not family and friends, that's close family and friends, they don't have any skin in the game. They don't have accountability. So there's a chance that all of a sudden they may tell you, sorry, I'm busy now for the next 3 weeks and your deadline is coming up, or they're not going to give it the amount of effort, time and energy required versus an organization that has skin in the game. Hopefully you've chosen an organization that has some reputation, has some sort of guarantees, because they're more they have a skin in the game because they want to protect their reputation. And if it's a proper organization, they want you to do well so that you could go and tell your friends, so that they could there's going to be more and more referrals for them. So it's a win-win. So that's, again, another thing to definitely think about. One of the major cons, I think, of asking friends and family is, and also just unpaid medical school admission consulting, is the fear that they may not tell you exactly how it is because they don't want to hurt your feeling. But it's better to have your feelings hurt before you get hurt feelings because of rejection and then waste a lot of time and money, energy, and a whole year of your life wasted. But there's definitely pros and cons. I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer. I think more or less it depends on the individual, their circumstances, their resources, and their ability for access to either free, some sort of a free consulting or a paid consulting. That's, I think, what would come down to.
I think one thing we haven't mentioned is the possibility to do your own research in a way that's a way to seek out consulting for yourself based on what's available out there on the World Wide Web, right? So in that sense, like when you do that, there's also obviously pros and cons to that. One, it's free. That's definitely a pro. If you have internet, typically you have access to a lot of information at your fingertips. A con might be that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. So, so it might be difficult for you as an inexperienced applicant to differentiate what's good from what's bad. And when you've done enough research to be able to see, or find a credible source that you trust, when you've done that, there's the step of implementing all of that advice. And at that point, feedback is really, really important, right? And that's what an advisor could offer, that simply looking at resources online, no matter how credible, that doesn't come with that level of feedback.
So that was time, 10 minutes. So that
Okay.
was it for us. But you know what? Maybe we're going to break our rule. I'm going to add some last couple of items as well. A couple of other things that I think are important is your time. If you're busy trying to apply and somebody else can help you out, cut that time. That's a huge advantage if they know what they're talking about and they can help you. Whether it's paid or not, it doesn't matter. But that time is important. And lastly, certain things it's really hard to do. Like, how are you going to do a mock interview on your own? I'm not really sure how that's possible. Is it possible? Sure, it is. There's even apps for it. But I think that's sufficient information for someone to make a decision between using medical school admission consulting versus not. And if you find the right one, it's certainly not a scam, although there are scams out there. Be careful. But there is also a lot of good organizations and individuals that really want to help out. With that said, that wraps up our one question podcast. Wherever you're watching this, hopefully you could subscribe, give it a like, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at the next episode. And we'll talk to you soon.